Man who's been in that circle before. Guy's been in every circle before. I believe if I recall the story correctly, he slept on people's couches down at the Senior Bowl whenever he was getting in. Went to school down in Georgia. Very, very
Emory.
Prestigious?
I think so. I think it's
very prestigious. Tough to get into.
I think it's very
selective.
Very, very.
You need to know the right people.
Yeah, I don't think it's just an easy.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't think I'm anywhere near getting in there or whatever. Anyways, chose to take the long road in the NFL media world. Insider, analyst, pundit, mock drafter, handshaker, Emmy Award winner is what inevitably it all led to with Good Morning Football. Now he is joining ESPN, an absolute legend. Ladies and gentlemen, friend of the program, Peter Schrager. What up, Schrags?
Dude, what an awesome intro. I cannot believe you're on air and fine after being in London last night where I was watching you. You're incredible, dude. I love it.
No, that's you, Schrags. And to be quite transparent, for those that have the ability, and if there's a direct flight, London at a nighttime flight, you land in the morning, 7:30, 8 a.m., have a day, then whenever you fly, if you can fly back at night, you land 5 a.m., 6 a.m. in the morning, so you're in there. I think if you stay for a few days and you get onto their time, I think you're in trouble. But I think if you just go in, stick and move, because I did with Scotland last week. Had to get back because Mr. LeBron James was going to stop by the Thunderdome. So that's been actually fun to get over there. I assume you've traveled to Europe numerous times. I've had a blast. It was very, very nice over there. Very nice.
It's amazing. And I don't know how the wrestling fans are, but we go for the NFL games and they just want sports and they want the NFL. And I was watching you on Raw, and it's it's the same exact thing for the wrestling, obviously. And the juice is a little different. They're not. It's not like they're not spoiled or anything, or that the American sports fans are spoiled, but they're so gracious and so happy that you're bringing your product to them. And it's oh, come on, this is a dream for us too. It's truly awesome, and I thought you were amazing on it.
Thank you. Well, they're born and raised in the hooligan atmosphere too. Soccer games, they're singing through the game. There's a lot of action, even though there's not a lot of goals being scored. The fans, I don't want to say have to generate the juice, but they kind of do, and they carry that into everything. It's almost like the Pacific Northwest. Like the Pacific Northwest, they're going to be good fans.
Timbers.
Bingo. They'll show up for that. That is. Anyways, welcome to ESPN. We're pumped that you're here. We just showed that video of Jay Glazer kind of sitting down, chit-chatting and mingling down at the owners' meetings. We assume you've been before, but let's talk about how some of these rules get passed that are currently happening. So, for instance, the Tush Push, it has been tabled for May. It has been tabled for May. What does that mean? Does that mean commissioner or some people want to kind of rally and find some votes? What is normally happening behind the scenes, Schrags?
I've been doing this for a long time as far as the competition committee goes, and usually you'll have a rule proposed, and maybe there'll be 2 or 3 people who are yes, let's do it. And this Tush Push took on a whole different life of its own, almost like it was a election of some sort, and that there were people lobbying other people for votes. It split 16 to 16, meaning it's a dead split as to who wants to get rid of it and who wants to keep it. Now, you would need to get 8 more votes to get rid of it. The league, though, you'd think that the league is one of the main sources of hey, we don't have any injury data to push that it has to be removed. If this was a bunch of injuries and guys were getting concussed and we have data, hard empirical evidence that there are knees being shattered because of this thing, well, then I promise you the league would be pushing that direction. They don't have that data. There is no data around it. What's interesting is you've got some big personalities who are lobbying to see some changes, and it's a different breed of coaches. It's McVay, it's LaFleur, Raheem Morris. These guys, and I talked to this Tush Push. It's gross. It's crap. It's not football.
What?
It's rugby.
What? Yeah, it's a scrum, Schrags. It's an ode to the past while still paying tribute to today. The modern athlete takes on old school sport. And to your point, whenever Philly lines up and does it, it's okay, they're going to pick up 2 to 4 yards here, and they're going to get a first down. So they're playing CFL football. It is 1st and 9 for them, and they have 3 downs basically to get to that. And I think that's kind of their big point, right, is if it was so easy, everybody would do it. Do we think more people now, if this thing remains, will start to try to implement it? Or how do you see it kind of going if the rule doesn't change going forward?
Well, that's an age-old debate. Jeff Stoutland and the boys in Philly have mastered this thing, and teams have tried, and they have not succeeded. And one of the interesting people who's really against it is Sean McDermott, who's on the committee. And of course, Sean McDermott ran several different quarterback sneaks in a big AFC championship game that got stuffed, 1 yard short. And a lot of people are saying around like, hey, just because you can't do it, don't get rid of it. And McDermott's point is, no, that's an injury waiting to happen. And this thing is hideous. Like seeing Frankie Louvu jump over the line of scrimmage 4 times and having a ref come out and be like, look, I'm just going to give him a touchdown. That's not fun. That's not great. But if you're an Eagles fan, you're like, come and stop us. Like, figure it out. And it's the whole thing about machismo and bravado, and it becomes this thing of like testosterone and like, we're the bullies in town. I almost think it's kind of cool if they get rid of it and the Eagles can look at each other and be like, we're that good at this that they had to ban it from the league.
Yeah, the Philadelphia Eagles doing this and being the team is so perfect for their city. I mean, it's so perfect. Sorry, we're too tough. Okay? Sorry, you Johns aren't gritty enough to be able to stop us. It's like, what a perfect city, perfect coach too. Sirianni, dogs. We want dogs. Sorry, our dogs are hungrier than your dogs. O-line, D-line, Howie, that's all he cares about. Like, it is such a perfect situation.
And that's also my favorite aspect of this. Howie obviously didn't play college or professional football. Howie's, this brilliant mind. But like, talking to Howie about, like, he's got his chest out a little bit. Like, oh, poor babies. Like, you guys can't stop it. Like, there's a little bit of that. And that bleeds throughout the entire city, and it goes right through to Miles Teller and Bradley Cooper and the fans that you see. Like, we're just tougher than you. Like, bring it. And, you see these coaches, and McVay is obviously, you saw him in Whitworth in the gym. Like, he's no softy, but he's like, it's just not good football. It's gross. Like, it's a rugby play. I don't know. That's not what we want to encourage, but it's now split. And as far as whether it'll get changed, I don't think the NFL on this one has a strong point of view. It's going to be how hard do these people want to lobby to get the 8 votes? And then it becomes like any election where, like, are you going to go campaign? Like, is McVay going to spend the next April and May, like, calling other coaches who are neutral and being like, I don't know if he's that passionate about it.
Okay, so let's roll through the rules that did pass here quickly. Kickoff will now go to the 35 after a touchback, which is good. Kickers also are allowed to bring their own balls into the games, which is awesome. Look for punters to hit massive balls. Like, this is going to benefit the punters greatly and obviously kickers as well. But every time a punter goes on the field, if he's going to have a broken in ball, there's a chance we see some like 5'8", 5'9" hang time, maybe even like a 6-0 hang time in the game.
You guys were punting brand new balls before?
No, so it wasn't brand new balls. It was like 30 minutes of broken in before the game. The one equipment manager from each team was deemed the person to break in the balls, and then an official would come watch. They had a brush, a towel, and a squirt water bottle, and they had 30 minutes under supervision to break in the balls. Highly anxiety riddled for the equipment managers who have a lot of other shit to deal with right before the game. And then our guy would come out. His name was Frog. He'd be dripping in sweat. He'd be like, I got some good ones for you guys today. And we'd say, thank you, Frog. And then Frog would have a great Christmas, because that is a big deal.
Frog.
Yeah. We take care of Frog. Obviously, Frog, good man, good lad. Also worked his ass off in there for 30 minutes every single week. There's some teams that have shitty ones. Back in the day, it was brand new balls. So there's always been a lot of K-ball conversation. Now they're going to be able to bring their own balls to the games. Look for punters to hit gigantic balls.
You know who's big on like an advocate for special teams is Darren Rizzi, and he's got a big voice in the competition committee. So Rizzi, of course, the Riz was obviously the interim coach of the Saints, but was instrumental in changing the dynamic kickoff. But when you talk about the competition committee and the different voices who matter, obviously, like, Tomlin's been there forever, and there's voices like McVay who's big on that, and McDermott, but like a voice like Darren Rizzi, who's been doing the special team stuff, who's now the Broncos special teams coordinator. He's almost a voice of like, hey, here's what the punters and kickers need, and it's kind of cool to have that voice also, vocalizing in those rooms.
Yeah, I don't want to say that Coach Riz is the one texting me, but I'll just say my source says that used to be an interim head coach and is now special teams sent a text. Yeah, so he's like jacked though. Like they're like all jacked about it. So obviously,
Dude, you would love this crew of like the Parcells guys, and it's like Joe Vitt and Sean Payton and Riz, and they're just like the last bastion of like the old school, like this is how it should be. And Darren Rizzi is definitely carrying that torch from the special team side.
Okay, so new ball, touchbacks go to 35. We kind of expected that. Hopefully that'll be good for the landing zone and more returns. They also were able to add another returner into the middle area, which is good. Replay assist. Let's talk about this, Schrags. This was kind of happening last year at the end of the year, I think, without us kind of knowing it. They were kind of growing it, expanding it, and I think it was good for the game. They saw the same thing. What does this mean, you think, from your eyes, and what does the future mean in your eyes with this rule change, Schrags?
Well, I think Kevin's on it here, and some context on this. They're not going to have New York throw a flag. Like, New York can't say, actually, that was pass interference, or actually, that was defensive holding. New York can't do that. But if a flag is thrown and it's egregious, New York City can come and pipe into the referees and be like, pick that flag up. Like that's not the call. So that's a change. It's progress. I don't think we're ever going to go back and do it where we did the pass interference reviews, which we had a couple of years back, which was a nightmare and would take 15 minutes and stop a game. And then the refs would always side with their original call anyway. But this is one where there can be a impartial party up in New York saying, hey, actually, that one wasn't. You can pick up the flag, but they cannot demand a flag be thrown after the fact.
Yeah, I think that's a smart move. And as long as they're quick and efficient and the right people are looking at the Xbox or whatever they're running it with and sending it down there, to your point, is good. The overtime stuff, I think that pass, they're going to have the same as you get a chance to answer, but it is in a 10-minute period as opposed to in playoffs. It's never ending until somebody wins the game. And I think they'll consider it a successful league meeting down there. Way to go, boys.
Hell yeah.
Right.
All right.
I'd say,
go ahead.
Real quick, that Glazer video that you showed, so that's like that's Jay's Christmas. Like this is his, and that is like 20 years in the making. And it started with like him and Tomlin getting drinks, and then it expanded. And it's the thing that like Jay, it's the Tuesday after the coaches in the NFC have their breakfast, so everyone's kind of done. And Jay gets all the head coaches together. And having been at that table with him, Jay was cool enough to invite me several times at these league meetings. It's hilarious. And they're not talking about free agents. I'm sure they're getting bombed right now because they've been sitting at a conference for the last 48 hours listening to presentations and dark lighting and dealing with their kids and their wives who are all there. And this is like their one time away. So Brian Dable's got his legs crossed. The cigar will be coming out shortly. And Andy Reid is hanging. He's not a drinker, but he'll hang and have a good time too.
Yeah, the Mormon will toss down a Diet Coke. Congrats to the boys. Yeah. Congrats to the boys. You earned it out there. All right. Schrags, we got some questions about other stuff that we know that you will know the answer to. Obviously, one of the greatest mock drafters in the history of mock drafts. D-Butch has a question for you, pal.
Absolutely. On that mock drafting note, Haslam has basically come out and said, look, took a big swing and a miss on Deshaun. That allows me to take full accountability. But now sitting there at number 2, the tea leaves are kind of saying momentum is going towards Abdul Carter going and pairing up with Myles Garrett in Cleveland. What's your thoughts and feelings on what Cleveland's going to do with that number 2 pick as it stands right now?
Well, they're not there yet. Here's the key thing. I think everyone doing the mock drafts, and I respect it. I like to wait until about 2 weeks beforehand when the pro days are done. You know, Shedeur Sanders hasn't had his pro day yet. It's this week. It's April 4th, and he hasn't had any private workouts with teams. So you're talking about if this guy's going to be my second overall pick, he didn't throw at the combine. We might have met with him for 15 minutes, but I got to get my hands on him. I got to A, see him at his pro day, and then B, I've got to bring him into our building and see how he interacts and how it goes. You look at Cleveland's quarterback situation. Finally, they're ripping the Band-Aid off. They're going to pay Deshaun Watson. He's going to get paid. But Kenny Pickett's the quarterback for now. There's a lot of smoke around them making a play for Cousins. Raheem Morris doubled down this morning saying, we're happy with Cousins being a backup. Keep an eye on that. But I wouldn't open any doors and say that, hey, just because they're done with Watson, this means it's Shedeur Sanders. You're right, D-But, that it sounds like Abdul Carter. You put him and Myles Garrett together. You have Kenny Pickett. And if Kirk Cousins comes to be great, but there's also some other quarterbacks that they can look at later on, and that might be Tyler Shuck, that might be Jackson Dart, Quinn Ewers. No one feels like they are so desperate right now to get Shedeur Sanders, but if he blows them away, that's an option they can do. They leave the door open, they can do so.
Yeah, Will Howard as well, sure, Schrags, as you're doing. Guy to back home.
Hey, I was going to say to you, I got to tell you, when you guys were at Ohio State, I forget, it was probably before the playoff game. It was freezing cold. You guys were just there, and I was working for NFL Network and Fox, and it was like a loosey-goosey day you guys had on there, and my wife and I are watching, and I'm like, I really appreciate these guys. I gotta join this crowd. Like you guys it was the day you were messing with Zaire Franklin, and I'm like, oh, I like it. It's
Messing with Zaire, yeah.
Like it was good, but I'm like, the fact that you have this ability to go with your boys a day before a college football playoff game, sit in the cold, laugh your asses off. It's great content, and I so appreciate even being on the show now because I wasn't able to this past season. The sky's the limits now, and you guys do such a great job.
Schrager, we're lucky to have you back.
Very
kind of you. It's not always, loosey-goosey's not always good, is what we have learned, but we're trying to get better every day. We're trying our best to get better, to be an additive to society. But I will say, those sideline passes games are the most absurd things of all time.
Yep.
And that's what we saw. That's where we saw, well, I mean, it was just like we saw C.J. Stroud, and we're not going to act like we were the only people that saw it. But at that time, C.J. Stroud was not being talked about as being the guy. Like, this is not the guy.
No, threw that pass against Georgia, 80 yards, and everyone's like, wait a second.
No, not even that. He jogged out in warm-ups when we were there, and it's like, this dude's big, very, very big. And I think it's the moxie is what I want to see is like, how the teammates feel about him, because the teammates always know. Like, hey, is this a good teammate or not? The teammates will tell you whether or not this is a guy. With Will Howard, it was like, after that Michigan loss, with how much money's being paid to that roster, with how many expectations there were on this particular team, Jeremiah Smith is, best player in football. There could have been a lot of people that turned on this guy, Will, especially with what happened at the end of the Oregon game earlier in the year, whenever, he ran and the clock ran out and everybody's like, this is the dumbest guy of all time. A lot of those teammates could have said, it's this guy's fault that we're losing this season and this might be our final season or we're going all in. And instead, he had a relationship with all of his teammates. He had handshakes with all of his teammates. It was like they loved him. And then what we watched him do, I mean, that was negative 10 degrees or whatever it was in that particular time there. What we watched him do up close and personal, those two balls, we're literally standing right there. It's like, this guy's a baller. I think it's
crazy, isn't it? So like you have the experience with game day. And then of course, when you guys are doing those simulcasts, you get to be there. But for years I was a sideline reporter, and what you see on the sidelines is I get 2 hits a game and I'm like, this guy's ankle's hurt and this coach yelled at this player. But what you don't get is that I'm there 3 hours before kickoff talking to the coaches. I'm there 3 hours before kickoff watching how the quarterback interacts. And for these draft pundits, a lot of them see stats, they see combine, but the coaches don't look at it necessarily that way. The coaches say, oh, well, I actually have a scout who was at the game when Oregon State played against, Stanford 2 years ago, and this guy in pregame did something like. That's why it's the total package. You can't just do evaluations based on film and by combine. There's all the intangible stuff, and I think you guys being on site, as I like to call it, like to touch the grass a little bit, get in there, see it. You can kind of navigate, and you'll know which guys are the goobers too. Like you can see that also. Like, oh, that guy stinks. Like I don't want that guy on my team, and the teams know that as well.
Yeah, I had a chance to do that Thursday Night Football Remy operation with ESPN 4 or 5 years ago, 6 or whatever it was, 6 years ago, maybe 7.
2019.
29 years, so 6 years ago. Molly McGrath was the sideline reporter. And sideline reporters, like to your point, only see them like 2-3 times a game. You hear them drop in and everything. But the amount of like info that she was sending up to the booth, like at all times, it was like, oh, the sideline reporters are like, they're your eyes. Like they're literally the eyes down on the side. Like, hey, just a heads up, blah, blah, blah just happened. And it's like all of a sudden that becomes like, need a camera on this, need to do this. It's like, and you're really in it. Like you're in the middle.
Coaches talking shit to you.
Yeah,
doing a touchdown.
Exactly.
Coach Fry.
I did a Bills Dolphins game a couple years ago. Saturday night game. It was cold. Josh Allen came back and like beat Tua, but I got like a snowball thrown at me in Buffalo, and then everyone was like looking at me. I'm like, hey, let's go. I'm on the field. Let's roll. Let's go. Let's do it. And it's like you're feeling it. You're actually in the action. And to that Buffalo fan who threw a snowball at me, I'm on ESPN now. Okay, so
great throw. Great throw. You had to be pretty far away to hit me. I was on the sideline. But with that being said, I'm an Emmy Award-winning host.
Hell yeah.
Aren't you, Schrags? Emmy Award winner, brother. And hopefully there's more where that came from. All right, we got some more questions, obviously, about everything happening around the NFL world. Con Man's got one for you.
Yeah, Schrags. Jed York came out and basically said, hey, mid-season 2024, we all decided, we're going to give Brock Purdy a few more shekels after underpaying him for so long, and now it feels like his contract is looming before the start of next year. Are you hearing anything as far as numbers go? Do you think he'll be a $50+ million per year guy, or do you think he might be in the 40s range so that San Fran can continue to build around him and have one of the best rosters in football?
It's really interesting because the gravy train was going there for a while, and they, against maybe better judgment in their hearts, were like, all right, we'll pay Debo this number. We'll pay Brandon Ayuk this number. We're all in, and this is the year we're going to be all in. The window is now, and we got Brock on this rookie quarterback, 7th-round pick salary, and then it all came undone. Someone in the league made a comparison to what's going on in the U.S. government right now, and it's like, all right, we got to just stop the bleeding, and we're going to analyze everything. And I'm like, no, don't go there yet.
They're AI in it.
They're taking over New Mexico.
They're dozing over. Got it. Okay, got it.
Did Purdy miss the boat on when the Niners were wheeling and dealing, or are they saving all of their money, or shekels as you call it, to give it to him? I don't see Brock Purdy making north of $55 million. I don't see Brock Purdy being one of the top highest paid quarterbacks. It's going to be a discussion with his agent, him, and what does he want? What does he need? And then you never want to take a hometown discount, but you also realize that, your Brock Purdy is $50 million the right number? Is 48 not the right number? Is 45 the right number? Can 40 be the right number? So curious to see where it goes out here, but obviously they want to sign Brock Purdy. That's been John Lynch's stance forever. Kyle Strong and his agent met with the team at the combine. These are open conversations, but I don't think this is the Justin Herbert deal or the Trevor Lawrence deal, or it's, every other young quarterback got paid. We got to pay him. The Niners, it's almost like the buck stops here. Let's be fiscally smart right now because we might have made some errors in the past.
I know you won 55, but quick question. 55, not bad. 48, same, right? Basically. Yeah. How about 44 then? 44 and 48, basically the same. We get you right there at 40. Think about what we can do, okay, with that extra 15. The way you wheeled and dealed and negotiated right there is exactly the sound a team would have for a player. For Brock Purdy, it is an interesting situation. Because, as Connor would say, the shekels have been pretty low, because he was the last pick of the draft. So he has had a very low NFL contract. And, you want to talk about Doge in the government. San Francisco's government takes a good amount of said, as Connor would say, shekels out of the contract to, give back to the city and to the state into the country, right? That's where it all goes. And then, that has been a pretty big amount. So if you go from making the least possible, basically, for a guy.
Literally the least possible that you could as a draft pick.
The least possible. As a starting quarterback, by far, but just as a player that is drafted as whole. So would a $45 million a year be welcomed because it was like, I was just making $900,000 last year. So, is that the sell? Yeah. Every ex-player and every NFLPA representative and every agent is like, Brock, don't you even think about something.
Burned it.
Okay. That is what they're going to be saying.
He's in a bad position leverage-wise, not because of his draft position, but because they still own his rights for the next 3 years. If they want to, play hard. Yeah, if they want to play hardball, franchise him a couple of times and still wait another year to pay him. So he is in a bad situation there. But you don't take less than 50. He deserves, especially with the salary cap going up, at least what Trevor Lawrence is getting. Jordan Love, what has he proved in comparison to what Brock Purdy has done in the league so far? So I think Brock, he deserves around that 55 at least. Josh Allen not breaking that 55 mark, not getting up to Dak. I think that kind of suppressed the market a little bit for the quarterback. Salary cap jumping up, though. Brock Purdy deserves 55. But we'll see how it plays out with the leverage that Niners have.
Good luck, Purdy.
Get it.
Good luck, Purdy. We're pulling for it. Hey, good luck to the Niners. I saw Lynch hand over a lighter for a cigar diner with Jay Glazer.
Was it a cigar?
They smoking weed down
I don't know. No. I don't know. I look around that circle. I see a couple cigs guys in there.
Got medical.
Oh, you're seeing some cigs down there?
Braves was there?
You're telling me people are packing cigs down there at the league meeting?
Braves was in that circle, but, I saw Liam Cohen, and I know one when I see one, and I know he's a cigarette guy.
Well, at what time do you think Braves is double cigarettes, 2 cigs,
3:30,
4 patches.
3:30.
It's 12:37 Eastern right now.
Probably an hour ago.
Started an hour ago.
Yeah, you're right. I guess there was a good brunch moment
Probably
there.
when someone came up and was like, "We need you to ban the tush push, Mike," and he was like, "All right, I'm sick of this."
What did he say? Actually, we're not going to let Lamar Jackson run anymore.
What? Just because nobody can stop it, we're going to just start banning stuff? No.
Think about the conversation in that room about the tush push from the meathead football guys. Vrabel, for instance, who might have had two cigarettes in his mouth. Might have.
Could.
Not just unlit cigs. Both of them lit. You know, there's a chance. Add a cigar in the middle. There's a chance he's 3-piece in that thing.
Triple stack.
And they say, we're not playing football anymore? And then you got
Pat,
somebody on
at
the other
same
side.
Table,
Go ahead.
You've got Mike McDaniel in sunglasses and a Gucci belt being like,
we are trying to play football. God.
Actually, if you think about it, like the dynamic of all these personalities is amazing.
I assume that's what that is afterwards. That Glaze is setting up. He's gonna get everyone and get 3 drinks in them, and then he's gonna be like, "All right, boys, 16 on 16, non-tush push, tush push. You got."
The knowing Glazer, he's like, I got Guy Fieri here, Stallone is here, we got Kurt Angle, and we got Chuck Liddell. They're all going to play. We're all going to vote too. Yeah,
Jay, these are all compliments because this could be real.
Yeah, love these,
like
Jay.
what we are saying right now could be real. Also, in my algo, more than I would, every once in a while I got to have a nice chat with the algo. You got to go to the search bar and be like, hey.
Don't do it, Pat.
No, you got to have a good conversation with your algorithm.
Yeah.
Those group MMA fights have been showing up a little bit more.
So awesome.
What? Have you seen this?
I have not.
Oh, group
What is it, like 2-on-2?
I
It's
just
in there
said it.
now.
Yeah, it's great.
No, like
2 on
6 on
2,
6.
6 on 6.
In a cage.
In a cage?
In a
Where?
cage. Yeah, they're in a cage. And then once one's out,
country?
it's now 6 on 5.
Yeah.
And then 4 on 1. Yeah, you see some of these. Like in the middle.
What country?
I'd assume it's Russia.
Yeah, not here.
Okay.
Well,
Yeah,
Side of the
yeah.
Atlantic.
Eastern.
Some
Eastern Bloc.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's insane. Have you seen the one where they're actual using a weapon?
Swords? The ones with like old time.
Yes,
Witty,
and
no
they're
weapons.
like, look that one up. Too.
Yeah,
Weapon
I
fighting.
need this in the
Shields.
algo.
They got the whole thing, armor.
They're not speaking our language, and I'm not sure we would be welcomed at the event, but it does seem like something that would be electrifying. And maybe Jay is setting it up tonight.
Could be.
16 on 16, put the cage up around the pool. Maybe it is just one big pool basketball game. Dan Quinn with that backwards
Cool
hat.
basketball.
MCDC.
coming, nerd, the whole thing. I mean, there's a chance.
Drowning Mike McDaniel.
All right, let's get back. None of this is going to happen. Maybe.
It should.
None of
Yeah,
it.
we don't know.
Zach Taylor from deep, just money. Like, sorry.
Zach
Yeah,
Taylor
that's good.
sitting on the side of the pool.
Yeah.
Getting a pass. Got to make that. You miss your one opportunity there. You're getting.
You're done. Yeah.
Yeah.
Andy Reid down low getting bored.
Oh, my
Are you
God.
kidding me?
With a T-shirt on in the pool.
Yeah.
His t-shirt just says Big Walrus on it.
Walrus, kick it. You
So many
kidding me?
opportunities. Hey, Jay, make it happen down
Come on,
there.
Jay.
Come on, Glaze.
Come on,
It's on
Glazer.
you, Jay Glazer. You either do it
on, dude.
or you hate football, Glaze. Hope they're having a good time. Tone has a question for you, Schrags.
Yeah, Schrags, you brought up Kirk Cousins, maybe tied to the Browns. He has a pass with Stefanski. You said Raheem Morris kind of put some chillers on that. But Arthur Blank said that he sat down with Kirk for an hour and took 5 pages of notes, handed those off to the football people, said you do with those notes what you will. But Breer said Blank definitely did not close the door on a trade. Do you think it might be the Browns? And if it's not the Browns, and let's say Aaron doesn't sign with the Steelers, do you think Kirk Cousins has a chance to play with the Steelers? Or do you think the Browns is potentially the only place that Kirk could go right now and be a starter potentially?
Look, the Browns thing makes a lot of sense for 2 big reasons. One, there's a gaping hole at quarterback. I mean, Pickett could hold the fort, but he's not your only option. And then 2, Stefanski and Cousins have a really good personal relationship. I don't know why Kirk Cousins was at a Chipotle in Ohio over the weekend, but he was. That was confusing to me. But that also leads you to think, wait, what's going on here? Truth of the matter is, Penix is the future in Atlanta. They're paying Cousins a boatload. Can they figure something out contract-wise? And is it really logical to think that Kirk Cousins, who signed on to the Atlanta Falcons to be the starter of the Atlanta Falcons, is thrilled to be the backup next year and to be grooming Michael Penix for a team that didn't even make the playoffs this season? At least in Cleveland, he goes to a quarterback's coach and a whisper that he's had. He's got a relationship, a fan base that would be thrilled to have him, and he's an upgrade, and he's the quarterback 1. It makes sense. Of course, the timing, they'd have to wait to be able to do this. But Myles Garrett, which Pat, I was very vocal about on my last home how we wasted an entire Super Bowl week listening to Myles Garrett talk about wanting to play for a Super Bowl champion. And you go on Radio Row and speak to anybody with a microphone, how all he wants to do is raise a Lombardi and then 2 weeks later get $40 million and sign and say, I want to be in Cleveland, actually. But Myles Garrett did say that he knows of a plan at quarterback, and he's comfortable with that plan. I can't imagine it's with a rookie quarterback or it's I'm thrilled to go to war with Kenny Pickett.
Well, Kenny Pickett's Super Bowl champion. Last guy to touch the ball in the Super Bowl was Kenny Pickett.
I think Myles would be. I don't want to speak for Myles, but I think Shedeur Sanders or Kirk Cousins. Which one would you be more comfortable with?
I think if I'm Myles
You want
Garrett
to win a Super Bowl, I don't know if either one's the answer right away.
Well, no, he decided though $40 million was enough to sway his thoughts.
He's there for another what?
4
years, 4 years. I mean, top of the draft.
Kirk and Abdul Carter though too.
Kirk, do
on
we
the other
remember
side.
We watched Kirk Cousins play football? Did we all watch?
I
know he's coming back. I know he's coming back.
Myles Garrett getting tripled. Abdul Carter on the other side as well, D-Bud.
But look, I'm with
Kirk
you.
got paid
I'm
$170 last offseason.
picking up what you're putting down.
We watched it. Kirk was hot. He was hot coming in, coming off the Achilles.
I'll tell you this.
Are they paying
Kirk
Kirk
Cousins
too?
against the Raiders, and I think it was Desmond Ridder under center, was the worst performance I've ever seen from a quarterback in a game. And I said, that guy looks like a shell of what he once was. And it came out afterwards. His shoulder was all busted up.
Yeah,
he was hurt.
How much money do they
Kirk.
spend on quarterbacks if they trade for Kirk Cousins and are paying Deshaun Watson?
Well,
What's
that's
the
paying
total?
37, right? It's 27 this year, then 10 million guaranteed next year because they did that thing a week ago or whatever and kept him on the roster. So that's an extra 37 million.
So Shedeur Sanders is the number 2 overall pick. Is what we're
It
saying.
sounds like.
Can't the Falcons pay his salary in the trade?
Yes, they could definitely pick up some of it, right? Just like the Broncos did for the Pittsburgh Steelers. So I mean, I guess that could be a part of the trade, but you'd have to give up what, 2?
Yeah, exactly. Why would you give up
Or
that
what?
pick?
Like 2 picks? Not the number 2 overall.
And
pick.
doesn't everyone?
Oh,
pay
I think
Jimmy
this might be
Haslam?
one of those where it's more like Russell and Seattle and Denver, where it's a much more even trade as far as who's getting. I don't think the Falcons have any leg to stand on to demand a bunch of draft picks for Kirk Cousins.
So Atlanta would have to pay it, and they wouldn't get a lot of.
I think this is more. Let's cut our losses if they're doing that, and let's give Kirk a chance to start somewhere.
Okay, so Atlanta pays the bills then. So then it is.
That is possible.
Then it is a cheaper contract because whenever you say Shedeur or Kirk, it's like Shedeur, you're getting a very cheap. Not cheap, very cheap, but you get it.
Yeah,
a rookie
cheaper,
contract quarterback, which is what the San Francisco 49ers had with Brock Purdy. Now much different as a number 2 overall pick as opposed to Mr. Irrelevant, but still the rookie contract at quarterback is a massive ordeal, especially if you got debts all over the place, which
what do you do though?
Browns
What do you do? I mean, if you're the Browns and you don't love Shedeur Sanders and you have the number 2 overall pick and this kid Carter is what you think he is and is a game changer, do you sacrifice having that guy for 10 years to draft a quarterback that might have been the 3rd or 4th quarterback taken in the draft last year? And just because it's the year of the draft that we have the number 2 pick, like it's this constant question of shopping when you're hungry and you don't want to go to the grocery store when you're starving because you end up buying all sorts of stuff that you don't want the next day. Shedeur Sanders, if you love him, take him, and you think he's the future, that's great, and Myles Garrett might know that he's the guy and they feel great, then that's okay. But if he doesn't blow you away and you're Stefanski and you know quarterbacks, and you're Andrew Berry and you know quarterbacks, and you're like, do you just take him to take him so you say we got a quarterback? That's tough.
Yeah. You don't want to go shop when you're starving or stoned, but right now they're in a situation where who
they've been starving and stoned for a long time.
Yeah.
Well, especially now they're more starving and stoned than they've ever been. They're paying. Like, yep, that one's on me, bub.
Hand up.
Me and D, we certainly thought it was the case. It has been an organizational failure from top to bottom, and that starts with us. That's what we all assumed why, Andrew Berry and Stefanski are still there is because we feel like a decision was made above them that has kind of handicapped them mightily. If it is Kirk Cousins going up there and they're able to go on a run, you know what? The dog pound, you didn't deserve it.
Yeah.
You didn't deserve it over there. Last question quickly here, Schrags. We can't thank you enough. Go ahead, Ty.
Yeah, Schrags, we heard Ben Johnson, who everyone knows, he's a wonderkind, he's the next guy, but he basically came out and said, hey, listen, EPA is more important than turnovers. And although last year Caleb Williams, I think, had the 2nd lowest EPA for quarterbacks in the NFL, is this something everyone knew? Is he like a big statistical guru and like analytics and all that kind of stuff? Because going in, I thought he was just, straight ball X's and O's, and now I'm all of a sudden kind of getting Brandon Staley vibes out of Ben Johnson. Like what's the?
You hear the word
I'm just saying.
As Packers fan, obviously.
I've gotten to know Ben pretty well, and I think there's this thought that either A, he's this like dorky X's and O's, sit in the bottom of a basement and just draw up plays like I'm a mad scientist, or there's this other feeling of it like that he's this I'm gonna shove it in the face of the Packers because I'm gonna be that guy. Truth of the matter is he's the total package. This is the guy who I think comes in here and values that stuff and might have said those stats, but I promise you, he is not looking at Caleb Williams because of something called EPA and what excites him. He's looking at Caleb Williams because he sees completely untapped potential, an awesome arm, a good kid, and a guy that they think they finally built an offensive line for this season with Jonah Jackson and Tooney, and we can go through it all. But they're like, this gives him a shot. But he had options. As we know, he could have gone anywhere. Yes, the money was good. He also really wanted to work with Caleb Williams. So I don't think it's because of turnover numbers or EPA. I think that was him just playing to the wonks a little bit.
Love that, playing to the wonks a little bit up there in Chicago. EPA, earned points added, is a stat per play, basically, where it's did you help your team on this play or did you hurt your team?
Like your plus minus.
Yeah, it's a plus minus for basketball. It's for football. Do you know who is the worst ever? Will Levis, if you're wondering.
No. Wait, what do you mean?
Ever?
Last season?
Maybe last season. I don't know. You see these points. I don't know how it can get much worse.
Could see it.
I'm telling you, there's some bad plays in the EPA. But who's the one judging? Like that's the whole thing. And then the overall points, you have to play a certain amount of plays because then they just get added onto. Like earned point average per play, some people are like negative 0.17 or 0.14. But if you don't play as many plays, you won't be like negative 69 or negative 94 or whatever it is. You'll just be negative 48. So whatever the case is, this stat seemingly says, do you stay on schedule? And do you hurt your team or do you help your team every single play? It's a new one.
I'm no meathead, Pat, but I think this show is going to be higher rated than the LeBron episode last week because I'm on it. But I think the ratings just tanked when you said the word EPA and started going through it, and that's the problem. Viewers don't want to hear it, and like we as media are trying to grasp it, but it is valued there in those buildings, and there are teams of analytical people putting these numbers together. I'm just not hip to the stats. To me, it's I want to see the guys throw, and I want to see how they interact with the teammates.
What was the other one? There was another one. Expected completion
percentage
over
expectation.
Yeah, there is. We get sent these over because Hembo obviously will send us some stats. And it's like, all right, I understand.
April Fools, here's a fake stat.
It's cool. Hembo, I appreciate you, but I don't know how that one applies, but smart people do, which you are one of them. And we can't thank you enough for joining us, and congrats on the ESPN deal, brother.
I'm so excited, really happy to be here. And one of the primary reasons I sought out ESPN as a home is because of the relationship you guys and your team has had with me and the ability to work together. It's really cool, Pat.
Schrager, we love you, man. You're the best. Ladies and gentlemen, Peter Schrager.
Hey.